Iqbal Mohamed.
Thank you, Ms. Jardine. It's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. I would like to also thank and congratulate my honourable friend, the member for the Isle of Wight West, for securing this important debate. This is a heartbreaking topic and issue, and it rightly demands urgent attention to tackle and prevent the harms that are being caused to children in their home. When I think about domestic abuse against children, my mind often goes back to those posters we had when I was growing up, and maybe recently, that we've seen in shopping centres and train stations, with two adults arguing and a child crouched in the corner watching in fear. That image is everywhere when we talk about children and domestic abuse, the child on the sidelines quietly absorbing the trauma around them. But the reality is far worse than that familiar picture, because children are not just witnesses. 1.8 million children in the UK are experiencing domestic abuse right now. And in the last 30 years, Women's Aid has found that 67 children have been killed by a parent who was also a perpetrator of domestic abuse, often during contact arrangements. That statistic and that it could happen during contact arrangements generally stopped me in my tracks. A more recent report from July of this year by the NSPCC, a briefing on child deaths due to abuse or neglect, estimates that at least one child per week is killed through abuse or neglect. This, in our country, in any country, is completely unacceptable. The Domestic Abuse Act 2021 recognised children as victims in their own right, and that was the right move. But then I came across another troubling fact during the research for this debate. In 2022, after this legal change, less than a third of survivors who wanted support for their children were able to get it. It's a real demonstration that changing the law doesn't automatically cause tangible change if we don't fund the services, if we don't create spaces for children to heal and feel safe. Then the law is just a line on a page. I was disappointed not to hear anything about the funding of how to tackle domestic child abuse and violence against women and girls in the budget this week. And it's really important that the government backs up their intentions and their ambitions to tackle this with real resources and funding. I want to thank organisations like the NSPCC and the RASAC who work across Kirklees and West Yorkshire. My own office has often refers families to them, whether that's for counselling or for children recovering from abuse or support when navigating domestic abuse cases. But it is disheartening that we rely so heavily on charities to do the work that should be backed by proper government strategy and funding. This year, the proportion of organisations providing children's domestic abuse without dedicated funding has doubled from 15.7% to 31.4%. That tells you everything about the state of the system. This is truly worrying when we heard from the government last year about the commitment to halving violence against women and girls. Many of the women who come to my office with cases of domestic violence would have fled to a refuge with their children due to abuse from a partner. These issues of violence against women and girls and protecting children from domestic abuse go hand in hand. Yet when you see the number of organisations supporting children without any dedicated funding has doubled, it's hard to believe those commitments are being matched by action. If anything, it shows children are still an afterthought in a system that claims to protect them. So one request from the Minister: will the Minister confirm what specific extra funding, resources and procedural changes are the government planning or have allocated to this space? In her response, please. We were told by the Department for Education by the end of 2025 there would be a roadmap for a Child Protection Authority, a recommendation that the government received by the independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. But we've heard very little since. The commitments are there, the reports all show the urgent need for long-term systemic change, yet we are not seeing the change actually happening. So a second ask from the Minister. Will the Minister confirm when the roadmap for Child Protection Authority can be expected? In conclusion, Madam Chair, children deserve better than posters of fear and a system that waits until harm has already been done. They deserve to be protected, to recover and to grow up feeling safe and loved. Right now, too many are falling through the cracks, and we owe it to them to fix that. Thank you.